We'll title this tape Planet Earth About to be Recycled. Your only chance to evacuate is to leave with us.
If I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left. Because my children are coming.
Cults. Some of the most interesting parts of human history, with many wondering, how did these people end up following the leader blindly and being manipulated into doing horrible things to others or themselves? There have been many cults throughout history, most of the time gaining large attention and media coverage. In this iceberg, we'll cover cults and religions. In this iceberg, we'll start with some that everyone knows, such as Catholicism, and towards the end, we'll show some of the most disturbing groups, cults, and religions that have ever been seen in human history. This iceberg will be about 10 tiers long, and obviously, like any iceberg, it gets more and more obscure in topics each tier goes down. And the first two tiers are superly common known religions, so I don't really see a point in covering religions like Catholicism or Hinduism because they're just really well known. So we're going to start on tier 3, which is where more unknown things start to show up. So, without further ado, let's get into the cult and religion iceberg. And oh yeah, before we start, subscribe. I'm trying to get to 10K before the end of the year, and it'd be awesome if you could help me reach that goal. And anyway, now let's actually get into the video. Alright, starting off the iceberg on tier 3 with Scientology. Scientology is a religion that was founded in the early 1950s by L. Ron Hubbard, an American author and philosopher. The central belief in Scientology revolves around the concept of Thetan, which is believed to be the individual's immortal spiritual essence. According to Scientology teachings, Thetans have lived through numerous past lives and carry with them past traumas and negative experiences known as engrams. The primary goal of Scientology is to help individuals reach a state of spiritual enlightenment and freedom by undergoing a process called auditing. During auditing, a trained Scientology counselor, known as an auditor, guides the person through recalling and addressing past traumas and engrams. The process is intended to rid the individual of these past negative influences, leading them towards spiritual awareness and personal improvement. Scientology has been a subject of controversy and criticism through its inception. Some former members and critics have accused the organization of being a cult, citing alleged abusive practices, financial exploitation, and psychological manipulation. Several countries have scrutinized Scientology's practices, leading to legal challenges in various jurisdictions. Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam, otherwise known as the NOI, is a religious and political movement that originated in the United States during the early 20th century. It was founded in 1930 by Wallace Ford Muhammad and later led by Elijah Muhammad, who became the movement's prominent figure. The Nation of Islam's teachings combine elements of Islam with black nationalist and separate ideologies. The Nation of Islam's primary mission is to uplift and empower African Americans, advocating for self-reliance, economic independence, and social justice. It teaches that black people are the original inhabitants of the earth and have been oppressed and marginalized throughout history. One of the central beliefs of the Nation of Islam is that Allah, otherwise known as God, appeared in the person of Ford Muhammad and later Elijah Muhammad as his messenger. They consider the traditional Islamic teachings as corrupted and believe in the divinity of Elijah Muhammad. The movement gained significant attention and membership during the 1950s and 1960s, with notable figures like Malcolm X, who became one of its influential spokespersons. However, in the late 1960s, after the death of Elijah Muhammad, the Nation of Islam experienced internal disputes and splits, leading to the emergence of different branches and factions. In recent years, the Nation of Islam has faced criticism for some of its controversial teachings, including racial separatism and the perception of white people. Christian Science. Christian Science is a religious movement founded in the late 19th century by Mary Baker Eddy. Its core teachings emphasize the spiritual healing of illness and the understanding of God's all-encompassing love and goodness. Christian scientists believe that the material world is an illusion and that true reality is spiritual and based on God's divine principles. At the heart of Christian Science is the belief that sickness and suffering are caused by erroneous beliefs and can be cured through prayer and deeper understanding of God's divine laws. They reject the use of medical treatments and instead rely on spiritual healing through prayer and mental practices. Christian Science is organized through the First Church of Christ Scientist, which has its headquarters in Boston, Massachusetts. The church publishes a weekly periodical called the Christian Science Monitor, and other literatures share its teachings and ideas. Over the years, Christian Science has faced criticism and controversy, especially regarding its stance on medical treatment. Some have raised concerns about the potential risks of relying solely on spiritual healing for serious medical conditions. LaVeyan Satanism is a religious and philosophical belief system founded by Anton LaVey in 1966. It is a form of modern Satanism that is atheistic in nature and does not worship or believe in a literal Satan as a deity. Anton LaVey, an American author and musician, wrote the Satanic Bible as a central text for the religion. LaVeyan Satanism promotes individualism, self-indulgence, and the pursuit of personal desires and ambitions. It encourages its followers to embrace their carnal nature and reject societal norms and taboos that hinder their personal development. The core tenets of LaVeyan Satanism include self-preservation, self-responsibility, and the pursuit of worldly success and pleasure. It places a strong emphasis on the concept of self-deification, encouraging individuals to see themselves as their own gods and prioritize their own well-beings and desires. LaVeyan Satanism also incorporates rituals and ceremonies, though these are often seen as theatrical and symbolic expressions of the philosophy rather than acts of worship. The religion has been criticized for its embrace of hedonism and perceived amorality, as well as its use of provocative imagery and language. It is crucial to note that LaVeyan Satanism is distinct from other forms of Satanism, such as theistic Satanism, which does involve the worship of Satan as a deity. LaVeyan Satanism is more of a philosophical and individual belief system rather than a religious practice based on the worship of a supernatural figure. The Old Order Amish is a traditionalist Christian group known for their distinctive way of life and religious practices. They are part of a larger Amish movement which originated in Europe during the 17th century as a result of the anti-Baptist movement. The Amish are primarily found in North America, particularly in rural areas of the United States and Canada. The Old Order Amish are known for their adherence to strict religious and cultural traditions, which often lead to a simple and isolated lifestyle. They place a strong emphasis on humility, community, and separation from the modern world. Their principles are based on the Ordung, a set of unwritten rules that govern all aspects of Amish life, including dress, behavior, and technological usage. Amish communities often live in close-knit, agrarian societies, relying on farming and manual labor for their sustenance. They typically shun modern conveniences such as electricity, telephones, and automobiles, viewing them as disruptive to their traditional way of life and values. The Amish are known for their distinctive clothing, including plain and modest attire, as well as their horse-drawn buggies, which serve as their primary mode of transportation. They also speak a German dialect known as Pennsylvanian Dutch or Pennsylvanian German. The Amish practice adult baptism, and their religious services are typically held in private homes or community buildings. They place a strong emphasis on community support and mutual aid, often assisting each other in times of need or crisis. Falun Gong is a spiritual practice that originated in China in 1992. It combines elements of Qigong, meditation, and moral philosophy. However, the Chinese government has been critical of Falun Gong, and since 1999, it has been banned and considered illegal in China. The government views the practice as a threat to social stability and has conducted a severe crackdown on its followers. Hoodoo. Hoodoo is a form of traditional African American folk magic and spiritual practice that has its roots in West African, Native American, and European traditions. It is mainly practiced in the southern United States, particularly in the states of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Hoodoo incorporates elements such as herbalism, divination, candle magic, mojo bags, and spiritual cleansings. Practitioners often work with charms, spells, and rituals to influence or bring out desired outcomes in various aspects of life, such as love, luck, protection, and prosperity. Messianic Jews. Messianic Jews are individuals who embrace both Jewish identity and belief in Jesus as the Messiah. They often combine elements of Judaism with aspects of Christianity in their religious practices and beliefs. This movement emerged in the late 1960s and has since grown, with congregations and communities worldwide. Messianic Jews may observe Jewish holidays and customs while also recognizing Jesus as their Savior. Gnosticism. Gnosticism is a collection of religious and philosophical beliefs that emerged in the early centuries of the Common Era. It encompasses diverse systems of thought, but they generally share the idea that knowledge, or gnosis, is the key to spiritual liberation and understanding the divine. Gnostics believe that there is a hidden knowledge of divine nature within individuals, and this knowledge can lead to salvation and freedom from the material world. Gnostic texts, such as the Nag Hammadi library, provide insights into their beliefs and perspectives. It's worth noting that Gnosticism was considered a heresy by early Christian authorities, and has a significant impact on the development of early Christian thought. Opus Dei is a Catholic organization founded in 1928 by Saint Josemaria Escriva. Its name means work of God in Latin. Opus Dei emphasizes the concept of finding holiness in daily life and promoting a closer relationship with God through ordinary work and activities. The organization encourages its members, known as numeraries or associates, to integrate their faith into all aspects of life and to strive for personal sanctification in their professional and social environments. Opus Dei has been subject of both praise and criticism over the years due to its practices and influence within the Catholic Church. Kabbalah is a mystical and esoteric tradition within Judaism. It originated in the Middle Ages and has been continued to evolve over time. Kabbalist teachings delve into the hidden meanings of the Torah and other sacred texts, aiming to understand the nature of God and the universe. Kabbalah involves very symbolic and complex systems, including the Tree of Life and the Sephirot, which represent different aspects of the divine and the spiritual realms. It explores concepts such as the Ein Sof, the process of creation, and the ascent of the soul, and the interplay between the divine and the material world. In recent times, Kabbalah has gained popularity beyond traditional Jewish circles and has been studied by people from different backgrounds seeking spiritual insights and personal growth. Alright, now into Tier 4, and on the first entry of Tier 4 being Hardline QAnon. QAnon is an American political conspiracy theory and political movement. It originated in the American far-right political sphere in 2017. QAnon centers on fabricated claims made by an anonymous individual or individuals known as Q. Those claims have been relayed and developed by online communities and influencers. Their core belief is that the cabal of satanic, cannibalistic child molesters are operating a global child trafficking ring which conspired against Donald Trump. QAnon has direct roots in Pizzagate, an internet conspiracy theory that appeared 1 year earlier, but also incorporates elements of many other theories. QAnon has been described as a cult. Followers believe that the Trump administration secretly fought the cabal of pedophiles and would conduct arrests and executions of thousands of cabal members on a day known as the Storm or the Event. QAnon conspiracy believers have been named Democratic politicians, Hollywood actors, high-ranking government officials, business tycoons, and medical experts as members of the cabal. QAnon has also claimed that Trump simulated the conspiracy of Russian interference in the 2016 United States presidential election to enlist Robert Mueller to join him in his exposing of the trafficking ring, and to prevent a coup d'etat by Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and George Soros. QAnon is described as an anti-Semitic or rooted in the anti-Semitic tropes due to its fixation on Jewish financier Soros and conspiracy theories about the Rothschild family, a frequent target of anti-Semites. Although it has origins in older conspiracy theories, the first post by Q was in October 2017 on the website 4chan. Q claimed to be high-level government officials with Q clearance, with access to classified information about Trump administration and its opponents. Q soon moved to 8chan, making it QAnon's online home. Q's often cryptic posts became known as drops and were collected by aggregator apps and websites. QAnon became a viral phenomenon beyond the internet and became a political movement. QAnon followers began to appear at the Trump campaign rallies in August 2018, and Trump amplified QAnon accounts on Twitter. QAnon's conspiracy theorists have been relayed by Russian and Chinese state-backed media, social media troll accounts, and the far-right Falun Gong Associated, a poached media group. Since its emergence in American politics, QAnon spawned movements around the world. The exact number of QAnon adherents is unclear. After increased scrutiny of the movement, social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook began taking action to stop spread of the conspiracy theories. QAnon followers have perpetrated acts of violence. Members of the movement took part in the 2020 United States presidential election, during which they supported Trump's campaign and waged information warfare to influence voters. After Joe Biden won, they were involved in the efforts to overturn the results in the election. Associates of Trump, such as Michael Flynn, Lynn Wood, and Sidney Powell, have prompted QAnon-derived conspiracy theories. When these tactics failed, Trump supporters, many of them QAnon followers, attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. The Capitol attack led to further, more sustained social media crackdown on the movement and its claims. 5% Nation. The 5% Nation, also known as the Nation of Gods and Earths, is a cultural and religious movement that emerged in the 1960s in Harlem, New York City. The movement was also founded by Clarence 13 Times, a former member of the Nation of Islam, who became disillusioned in the teachings of Elijah Muhammad and decided to form his own organization. At the core of the 5% Nation's teachings is the belief that black people, who they refer to as the 5%ers, are the original people of the earth. The name 5% comes from a belief that only 5% of the world's population possesses the knowledge to understand and promote freedom, justice, and equality. They see themselves as an enlightened few who have been awakened to their true identity and purpose. The movement places great emphasis on a knowledge of self and the study of the supreme mathematics and supreme alphabet. These are the systems, or understanding numbers and letters as symbols representing spiritual and universal truths. Through this knowledge, 5%ers seek to elevate themselves and their communities, aiming to empower and uplift their fellow members. The 5% Nation incorporates elements of Islam, but it is important to note that it is considered a separate entity from the traditional Islam and has its own distinct beliefs and practices. The movement teachings draw from a wide range of spiritual and historical references, including various religious sculptures, philosophy, and African heritage. Over the years, the 5% Nation has been a significant influence on hip-hop culture. Many prominent hip-hop artists have referenced 5% teachings in their music and incorporated the symbolism into their art. Their influence has led to a broader awareness of the movement and its principles among younger generations. As with any belief system, the 5% Nation has faced both its praise and criticism. Some admire its emphasis on self-empowerment, knowledge, and cultural pride. Others, however, have raised concerns about certain aspects of its teachings and the potential for misinterpretation or misrepresentation. The peyote religion, also known as the Native American Church, is a religious movement that combines Native American spiritual practices with the ceremonial use of peyote, a small, spineless cactus containing psychoactive compounds. The religion emerged among the indigenous tribe in North America during the late 19th and early 20th century. Central to the peyote religion is the sacramental use of peyote in religious ceremonies. Participants consume peyote in the form of a tea or dried buttons during all-night ceremonies that involve singing, prayer, and meditation. These rituals are believed to facilitate communication with the spirit world, promote healing, and foster personal growth. The peyote religion emphasizes unity, respect for nature, and the interconnectedness of all living beings. It does not seek converts and is primarily practiced by members of the indigenous tribes, especially those with roots in the southwestern United States and northern Mexico. In 1918, the Native American Church was officially incorporated in Oklahoma, proving legal protection for its members to practice their religious ceremonies, including the sacramental use of the peyote. The right to use peyote in religious ceremonies has been protected by U.S. federal law under the American Indian Religious Freedom Act of 1978. The peyote religion has faced challenges and controversies over the year, particularly concerning the use of peyote, which contains controlled substances under federal law. However, due to its religious significance for the indigenous people, an exemption been granted to members of the Native American Church, allowing them to continue their traditional ceremonies with peyote. Cargo cults. Cargo cults refer to a phenomenon that emerged in the South Pacific Islands during and after World War II. The indigenous populations of these islands witnessed the arrival of military forces with advanced technology and vast amounts of supplies. They observed how these goods were unloaded from airplanes and ships, leading them to develop beliefs and rituals surrounding the accumulation of material wealth. The term cargo cult is derived from a belief held by some of these groups that if they mimic the behaviors of the foreign military personnel, such as building runways, control towers, and other structures, they will attract similar cargo or material goods. These beliefs arose from a misunderstanding of the underlying reasons of why military's abundance of resources and were characterized by ritualistic practices and in imitation of Western behaviors. Over time, some of these cults evolved into their own religious movements with unique beliefs and practices. Cargo cults are often seen as a response to the dramatic cultural collision between technologically advanced societies and isolated indigenous communities. They have been studied by anthropologists and sociologists as fascinating examples of cultural adaptation and the effects of globalization. Church of Subgenius. The Church of Subgenius is a parody religion that was founded in the 1950s and gained popularity in the 1980s. It was created by Ivan Stang and Philo Drummond as a satirical critique of organized religion, consumer culture, and various aspects of American society. The Church of the Subgenius used humor, absurdity, and irony to comment on the human condition and challenge traditional belief systems. Its central tenets are deliberately absurd, promoting the concept of slack, the pursuit of personal fulfillment and freedom, and the belief is an extraterrestrial conspiracy involving being called X-ists and the elder gods. The church's teachings, rituals, and symbols are intentionally bizarre and nonsensical, often drawing inspiration from science fiction, conspiracy theories, and popular culture. They hold annual events like X Day, where followers await the end of the world and promise salvation through the arrival of their alien X-ists. While the Church of Subgenius is primarily a satire and parody, has developed a small but dedicated following over the years. Its appeal lies in a subversive humor, social commentary, and rejection of the conventional norms, making it a unique and thought-provoking cultural phenomenon. Chaos magic is a modern form of occult practice that emerged in the late 20th century and has gained popularity among contemporary occultists. It is characterized by the select and experimental approach to spirituality and magic, embracing a radical departure from traditional occult systems that adhere to specific belief structures or dogmas. Central to chaos magic is the notion that belief itself can be utilized as a powerful tool for manipulating reality. Practitioners often employ symbols, rituals, and psychological techniques to create a desired change in their lives or in the world around them. What sets chaos magic apart is its emphasis on flexibility or adaptability. It encourages individuals to draw upon beliefs and practices from various sources, including different religious and mythological traditions, and adapt them to suit their own individual needs and desires. One of the core principles of chaos magic is the concept of paradigm shifting. Practitioners intentionally change their beliefs and magical systems to suit their goals. This fluidity allows chaos magicians to explore and experiment with different approaches, constantly seeking what works best for them in the pursuit of their objectives. In chaos magic, deities from various pantheons, concepts from different religions, or even fictional characters can serve as symbols to focus intentions. By employing such symbols, practitioners tap into the power of archetypes and collective unconscious, aligning themselves with the underlying currents of human consciousness. Chaos magic has been associated with a sense of humor, playfulness, and irony. Its use of absurdity and paradoxical thinking challenges them into conventional norms, encouraging practitioners to look beyond rigid belief systems and societal constructs. This liberation from fixed ideologies allows for a more open-minded exploration of their self and the world. Society for Ethical Culture. The Society for Ethical Culture, also known just as ethical culture, is a humanist and ethical movement that aims to promote ethics, social justice, and moral values without relying on religious beliefs. It was founded in 1876 by Felix Adler, a German-born American philosopher and a non-theistic alternative to traditional religious institutions. Ethical culture societies prioritize ethical behavior, social responsibility, and the improvement of human welfare. They believe to inherit worth and dignity of every individual and seek to create a more just and compassionate society. The movement emphasizes the importance of reason, compassion, and critical thinking in addressing social issues and moral questions. Ethical culture societies typically hold regular gatherings, which may include talks, discussions, and community service progress. These meetings prove a platform for members to explore ethical issues, exchange ideas, and work together to make positive contributions to their communities. One of the fundamental principles of ethical culture is the concept of ethical mantra, which states, "Deed before creed." This means that actions and ethical conduct are considered more important than adherence to a particular set of beliefs or dogmas. Although ethical culture is non-theistic and does not involve the worship of a deity, it welcomes individuals from various religions and philosophical backgrounds who share its commitment to ethical living and social justice. Over the years, ethical culture has played an influential role in advocating for various social causes, such as civil rights, women's rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and environmental sustainability. It continues to be a source for ethical guidance and community engagement for those seeking a humanist and social responsible approach to life. The Chinese Underground Church. The term underground church is used to refer to Chinese Catholic churches in the People's Republic of China, which have chosen not to associate with the state-sanctioned Catholic Patriotic Association. They are also called loyal church. Underground churches came into existence in the 1950s after the Communist Party establishment of the People's Republic of China due to the severing of ties between Chinese Catholics and the Holy See. There continues to be a tension between the underground churches and open churches, which have joined the state-sanctioned Catholic Patriotic Association. Christian identity. Christian identity is a religious ideology that emerged primarily in the United States during the mid-20th century. However, it is essential to note that Christian identity is not representative of mainstream Christianity and is considered a fringe movement with controversial and extremist beliefs. Christian identity combines central elements of Christianity but with racist and white supremacist ideologies. Adherents of this movement believe that white people, specifically those of European descent, are the true descendants of the ancient Israelites, and they consider non-white races to be inferior and cursed by God. These ideology interprets biblical texts selectively to support its racist views, often misusing and distorting religious scriptures to promote its hateful agenda. Some Christian identity followers even go as far as promoting anti-Semitic beliefs, blaming Jews for societal problems and perceiving them as enemies of the white race. The movement has been faced widespread criticism and opposition due to its diverse and harmful nature. Mainstream Christian denominations and organizations have considered, rejected, and denounced the teachings of Christian identity as incompatible with the core principles of love, compassion, and inclusivity that are central to Christianity. It's crucial to differentiate between Christian identity and mainstream Christianity, as the latter promotes tolerance, understanding, and respect for all individuals, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or background. Christian identity stands as a stark contrast to these values and remains a fringe belief system, disavowed by the vast majority of Christians worldwide. Raelism, also known as the Raelian movement, is a UFO religion founded by Claude Vorilhon, a French sports car journalist in the 1970s. He changed his name to Rael after claiming to have a life-changing encounter with extraterrestrial beings in 1973. According to Raelian beliefs, these extraterrestrial beings are advanced scientists who created all life on Earth through genetic engineering. The central tenets of the Raelism include the belief in an advanced alien species called the Elohim, who allegedly created humanity using genetic manipulation. Raelians believe that humans were created to achieve a peaceful, harmonistic world and that they should embrace science, promote sexual freedom, and reject traditional religious dogmas. One notable aspect of Raelism is its emphasis on cloning and genetic engineering, which the movement views as a path to immorality and the resurrection of deceased individuals to his future. They advocate for scientific research in these fields to advance human knowledge and enhance human life. Raelism has faced criticism and skepticism from various quarters due to its claims about encounters with extraterrestrial beings and its unconventional beliefs. Despite its relatively small size and controversies, the movement has managed to establish itself in several countries and continues to attract followers who identify as Raelians. Santa Muerte, also known as Saint Death or Holy Death, is a folk saint and a spiritual figure worshipped primarily in Mexico and other parts of Latin America. It is a religious practice that combines elements from indigenous Mexican beliefs, Catholicism, and other religious traditions. The image of Santa Muerte is typically depicted as a skeletal figure, often dressed in colorful robes or garments. Despite its appearance as a figure of death, Santa Muerte is not associated with evil or malevolence in the sight of its followers. Instead, she is seen as a powerful protector and intercessor, capable of granting favors, protection, and assistance in various aspects of life. The devotion to Saint Muerte has grown significantly in recent years, attracting a diverse following that includes individuals from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Many of her followers believe that she provides help and guidance when traditional religious avenues seem unresponsive or inadequate. She is often approached for matters related to love, health, financial prosperity, legal issues, and protection from harm. It's important to note that the veneration of Santa Muerte is not recognized by the Catholic Church and is sometimes considered controversial due to its unorthodox nature and perceived association with criminal activities. Some people mistakenly associate her worship with negative or criminal elements, but the vast majority of Santa Muerte devotes seek her protection and blessings for positive purposes. In Mexico, Santa Muerte is often associated with marginalized communities and those who face challenging circumstances or feel alienated from mainstream religious institutions. The practice of devotion to Santa Muerte is deeply personal and can signify from one follower to another, with no centralized authority or dogma governing the beliefs and practices. Over the years, Santa Muerte has gained some popularity beyond Latin America, particularly in regions with sizable Mexican immigrant populations or among individuals with an interest in alternative spiritual practices. Nuwaubilism, which I totally mispronounced, but I tried my best. Nuwaubilism is a religious and social movement founded by Dwight York. Nuwaubilism blends elements from various religious, cultural, and philosophical traditions, making a theanthropic belief system. York claimed to be an extraterrestrial messenger in the Nubian high priest king. He combined ideas from ancient Egyptian mythology, Freemasonry, Sufism, Christianity, Islam, and UFO beliefs to create a unique doctrine. He also incorporated Afrocentric elements into the teachings, emphasizing black pride and empowerment. The Nubian community established its headquarters in several locations over the years, notably in New York, Georgia, and later in Edenton, Georgia, where they built a large compound. The community lived in communal setting and followed the teachings and beliefs of Dwight York. The movement gained some followers, especially among African Americans seeking spiritual and cultural identity, as well as those interested in alternative and historic beliefs. However, Nuwaubilism has faced critique and legal challenges. In 2002, Dwight York was arrested on various charges, including child molestation, racketeering, and fraud. He was subsequently convicted and sentenced to 135 years in prison in 2004. After his imprisonment, the Nubian movement experienced a decline in its provenance and activity. Today, while Nuwaubilism still has some followers, its influence has significantly diminished, and it remains a relatively small and obscure movement compared to its earlier years. Alright, now on to Tier 6, and if you notice I'm skipping any, it's just because the entries just are relatively uninteresting, and don't come at me if that's something you're interested in, but I just didn't find them that interesting, and just to keep the video kind of fresh and more, interesting, obviously. And alright, starting off Tier 6 with Ringing Cedars. The Ringing Cedars refers to a series of books written by Vladimir Mig, starting off with the first book titled Anastasia. The books are often associated with the Ringing Cedars of Russia movement, which promotes a spiritual and ecological philosophy centered around the connection between humans, nature, and the universe. The series follows the author's encounters with a woman named Anastasia, who lives in the Siberian taiga and shares her wisdom about living in harmony with nature. The books cover various topics, including sustainable living, spirituality, and personal growth. Compound Mormons are individuals or communities who live in compounds or closed communities that have distinct beliefs or practices that differ from mainstream Mormon teachings. These compounds are often associated with fundamentalist sects and that have broken away from the mainstream Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. These groups may practice polygamy or other beliefs and practices that diverge from the teachings of the larger Mormon Church. Moonies is a term used to refer to members of the Unification Church, a religious movement founded on the Sun Moing Moon in the 1950s, officially known as the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. The Unification Church is a unique and often controversial religious organization that has garnered attention for its distinctive beliefs, practices, and history. At its core, the Unification Church teaches that Sun Moing Moon and his wife, Hak Ja Han Moon, are the embodiment of the true parents, fulfilling a messianic role to guide humanity towards spiritual enlightenment and world peace. The church believes that Moon's union symbolizes the restoration of the ideal family unit and serves as a foundation for the establishment of a harmonious and unified world. One of the most widely recognized aspects of the Unification Church is its practices of mass weddings, where thousands of couples from around the world are married in one single ceremony. This practice is rooted in the belief that these collective unions contribute to the realization of a more peaceful and harmonious global society. However, the mass weddings have drawn both fascination and criticism from various quarters, with some viewing them as a testament to the church's commitment to the unique worldview, while others perceive them as an unconventional or even conservative. Throughout its history, the Unification Church has faced controversies and legal challenges. Its unconventional teachings, practices, and organizational structure has led to debates over issues such as the treatment of members, accusations of mind control, and concerns about financial transparency. Critics have also raised questions about the church's hierarchical structure and its sometimes insular nature. Appalachian Snake Church, also known as just snake handling or serpent handling, is a religious rite observed in a small number of isolated churches, mostly in the United States, usually characterized as rural and part of the holiness movement. This practice began in the early 20th century in Appalachia and plays only a small part in the church service. Participants are holiness or Pentecostals, and what these churches do are just handle and carry around snakes in some sort of ritual fashion, and it's used to show obedience to God and stuff like that, which is just an interesting ritual, but weird to see. The Michael teachings is a spiritual philosophy that emerged in the 1970s, attributed to a group of entities known as Michael. These advanced spiritual beings provide guidance through channeling sessions with mediums. These teachings encompass topics like reincarnation, soul evolution, and human behavior, proposing that each person has unique soul characteristics or overleaves, shaping their personality and interactions. Central concepts include soul ages, like infant, baby, young, mature, and old, archetypal roles, server, artist, and warrior, scholar, sage, priest, and king, and overleaves such as Ahmad, goal, and attitude. While embraced by some, the teachers have been faced skepticism and criticism. They are spread through books, workshops, and online resources related to spirituality and channeling. Alright, now into Tier 7, starting with the Ghost Dance. The Ghost Dance was a spiritual and cultural movement that emerged among several Native American tribes in the late 19th century, particularly among the Lakota Sioux. The movement was a response to profound social, cultural, and economic changes that Native American communities were experiencing due to colonization and the displacement of their traditional ways of life. The Ghost Dance was centered around a series of dances and rituals that were believed to connect participants with deceased ancestors and spirits. Followers of the movement believed that by performing the Ghost Dance, they could hasten the return of the ancestral lands, the revival of traditional ways of life, and the removal of hardships brought by the European colonization. Wovoka, a Pope prophet, also known as Jack Wilson, is often credited with inspiring the Ghost Dance movement. He claimed to have a vision in which he was told that Native Americans should participate in the Ghost Dance to bring about a better future. The movement gained significant attention and spread among various tribes in the western United States, particularly among the Lakota Sioux. However, authorities and settlers were often alarmed by the movement, fearing it could lead to unrest or violence. The Ghost Dance reached a tragic climax in the Wounded Knee Massacre of 1890, where U.S. Army soldiers killed over 150 Lakota Sioux, including women and children. The Ghost Dance remains a poignant symbol of Native American resistance, cultural preservation, and the impact of colonialism or indigenous communities. It's a reminder of the complex history of Native Americans, tribes, and the European settlers during a period of significant change and upheaval. The Old Calendar often refers to the use of the Julian calendar for calculating dates and religious events, particularly in the context of Eastern Orthodox Christianity. The Julian calendar, introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 BCE, was gradually replaced by the Gregorian calendar in many parts of the world to collect inaccuracies in the measurement of time. In the context of Eastern Orthodox Christianity, some churches continue to follow the Julian calendar for calculating the dates of religious feasts, such as Christmas and Easter. This practice is most commonly observed in the Orthodox churches in Russia, Serbia, Ukraine, and other countries. The use of the old calendar has led to discrepancy between the dates of certain religious celebrations in Eastern Orthodox communities that follow the Julian calendar and those that follow the Gregorian calendar, which is used by most of the world today. The difference can result in Orthodox Christmas and Easter being celebrated on different dates than their counterparts in Western Christianity. The choice of calendar has historical, cultural, and religious significance between Eastern Orthodox traditions, while some Orthodox churches have transitioned to using the Gregorian calendar for calculating certain feasts. Others continue to adhere to the old calendar, maintaining a unique aspect of the religious practices and identity. The Branch Davidians are a religious group that originated at an offshoot of the Davidian movement, which itself was an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The Branch Davidians gained significant attention due to the tragic events that had unfolded during a siege at the compound near Waco, Texas in 1993. The leader of the Branch Davidians at the time was David Koresh, whose birth name was Varon Wayne Howell. Under his leadership, the group established its headquarters at the Mount Carmel Center near Waco. This Branch Davidians' beliefs include a mix of Christian and apocalyptic teachings, with a focus on the imminent second coming of Christ and the establishment of the kingdom of God. The standoff between the Branch Davidians and law enforcement authorities began on February 28, 1993, when the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, otherwise known as the ATF, attempted to execute a search warrant at the compound. The confrontation escalated into a violent gunfight, resulting in the deaths of 4 ATF agents and 6 Branch Davidians. The situation ultimately led to a 51-day siege by federal law enforcement agencies, including the FBI. On April 19, 1993, the compound caught fire, resulting in the deaths of David Koresh and approximately 75 other Branch Davidians, including men, women, and children. The cause of the fire remains a subject of debate and controversy. The events at Waco sparked widespread debate and criticism, with concerns raised about the handling of the situation by law enforcement and the government. The incident also led to discussions about religious freedom, government intervention, and the potential dangers of religious extremism. One Law Hebrew Roots is a movement within Christianity that emphasizes the importance of adhering to Old Testament or Hebrew law, particularly the commandments given to the Israelites in the Torah. This movement seeks to bridge the gap between Christianity and Judaism by advocating for the belief that both Jewish and non-Jewish believers in Jesus should follow the same set of commandments and regulations found in the Hebrew Scriptures. The one law aspect of this movement refers to the idea that there should be a single set of commandments that applies to all believers, regardless of their ethnic background. This is the contrast to other Christian perspectives that differentiate between the requirements for Jewish and Gentile believers, often based on the New Testament teachings. Hebrew Roots refers to the movement's emphasis on reconnecting with the historical and cultural roots of Christianity by studying and applying Jewish traditions, customs, and biblical laws. Followers of the One Law Hebrew Roots movement may observe dietary laws, Sabbath observance, and various Jewish festivals and practices as a means of living out their faith in a manner that they believe aligns closely with the practices of the early Christian community. Independent Scientology refers to individuals or groups who practice Scientology outside of the official Church of Scientology organization. It has its roots in the wider context of the Church of Scientology and its founder, L. Ron Hubbard. Some individuals who identify as independent Scientologists may have left the official church due to disagreements over various aspects of the organization, its leadership, or its practices. They often continue to believe in and practice Scientology, but choose to do so independently, without affiliation to the church. Independent Scientologists may use Hubbard's writings, teachings, and auditing techniques, adapting them to their own understandings and preferences. They might form informal groups, practice auditing, a form of consulting central to Scientology, and engage in study in the discussion of Scientological principles. Rajneesh, also known as Osho, was a spiritual teacher, philosopher, and leader of the controversial spiritual movement. He was born Chandra Mohan Jain on December 11, 1931, in India, and he gained prominence in the 1970s and 1980s. Osho's teachings were a blend of spirituality, meditation, and personal growth. He emphasized the importance of self-awareness, meditation, and the exploration of one's inner self. Osho's teachings often challenged conventional beliefs and societal norms, encouraging followers to break free from conditioning and embrace a more liberated way of life. In the 1980s, Osho established an intentional community called Rajburm Firm in Oregon, USA, which I totally mispronounced that community or whatever, but the community gained attention for its controversial practices, including the development of a large commune and its confrontations with local authorities. Osho's teachings and the commune's actives led to the legal issues and conflicts with the surrounding communities. Osho's teachings and philosophy are documented in numerous books and regarded discourses. He covered a wide range of topics, including meditation, love, relationships, consciousness, and societal issues. His teachings attracted followers from around the world, and his dynamic and charismatic speaking style drew large audiences. Osho passed away on January 19, 1990. After his death, his teachings continued to influence spiritual speakers and his followers, but the movement also faced criticism and controversy due to the allegations of financial mismanagement and questionable practices. The Freedomites, also known as the Sons of Freedom, were a radical Christian sect that originated among Russian Doukhobors in the late 19th and early 20th century. The Freedomites were a faction with the larger Doukhobor community, which was known for its pacifist beliefs and the resistance to the Russian Orthodox Church and the Tsarist government. The Freedomites emerged as a response to changing circumstances in Canada, where many Doukhobors had migrated to escape religious persecution in Russia, while the majority of the Doukhobors sought to peacefully integrate with Canadian society. The Freedomites rejected certain aspects of modern life, including government authority, education, and material possessions. The Freedomites' beliefs and practices include acts of protest such as public nudity, arson, and the destruction of property, as a way of expressing the rejection from societal norms and institutions. They engaged in these actions to demonstrate their commitment to the simpler, more spiritual way of life. Throughout this 20th century, the Freedomites' acts have led to clashes with Canadian authorities, legal troubles, and periods of incarceration. Over time, some factions of the Freedomites moderated their views and practices, while others remained committed to their radical stance. The Source family was a communal spiritual group that emerged in the 1970s in Los Angeles, California, founded by James Edward Baker, who later changed his name to Father Yod. The Source family combined elements of spirituality, health food, and countercultural ideals. Father Yod was a former Marine and Hollywood stuntman who became interested in Eastern mysticism, health practices, and alternative spirituality. He attracted a following of young, idealistic individuals who were drawn to his charismatic leadership and the communal lifestyle he offered. The Source family lived together in a large house known as the Source Restaurant and Bakery, which also served as a gathering place for the local community. The group embraced a blend of New Age philosophy, Eastern spirituality, and holistic health practices. They followed a vegetarian diet, practiced meditation and yoga, and embraced a holistic approach to well-being. One distinctive aspect of the Source family was its focus on the sacred and the transcendent, with Father Yod being revered as a spiritual figure. The group's members adopted new names and lived according to the teachings and practices promoted by Father Yod. The Source family gained attention for its unique lifestyles and beliefs, and it attracted a following of curious individuals and seekers. The group also released musical albums, contributing to their visibility to the counterculture scene of the time. Tragically, the Source family's existence was cut short when Father Yod died in a hang gliding accident in 1975. After his death, the Source family gradually disbanded, with members moving on to different paths and pursuits. The Source family's legacy is remembered as an example of the communal and spiritual experimentation that characterized the counterculture movements of the 1960s and 1970s, and it remains a subject of interest and study for those exploring alternative lifestyles, spirituality, and the cultural shifts of that era. Alright, now on to Tier 8, and I think I'm going to mispronounce this, and it's starting off with a weird and wacky one, but the Bergholz Barbers. And this refers to a group of Amish men in the Bergholz community of eastern Ohio who carried out attacks against other Amish individuals by forcibly cutting their beards and hair. These incidents occurred between 2011 and 2013 and were motivated by a religious and cultural dispute within the Amish community. The conflict arose between the leader of the Bergholz community, Samuel Mullet Sr., and other Amish bishops. Mullet's leadership and practices were seen as authoritarian and oppressive by some within the community. The dispute escalated to the point where Mullet and his followers, known as the Bergholz Barbers, resorted to acts of violence as a way to enforce their authority and punish those they perceived as dissenters. The cutting of beards and hair holds significant symbolic meaning within the Amish tradition, representing a violation of both religious and cultural norms. The attacks on fellow Amish individuals carried turmoil and shock within the broader Amish community and drew media attention. In 2012, Samuel Mullet Sr. and 15 of his followers were arrested and later convicted of federal hate crime charges for their involvement in the attacks. The convictions highlighted the serious nature of the offenses and underscored the importance of religious tolerance and respect within close-knit communities. The Bergholz Barbers case remains a notable example of intra-community conflict within Amish culture. The Children of God. And before I get into this entry, consider liking and subscribing. I mean, you're almost 50 minutes into the video, so I guess you enjoyed the video enough. So consider liking and subscribing. It means a lot. And now on to the Children of God, also known as the Family International, is a religious movement that originated in the late 1960s, founded by David Berg, who also was known as Moses David. The group started as a countercultural and evangelical movement. Over time, it evolved into controversial and complex organization with changing beliefs and practices. Intentionally, the Children of God attracted followers who were seeking an alternative form of Christianity, emphasizing communal living, evangelism, and a strong focus on the imminent return of Jesus Christ. The group adopted unconventional methods of evangelism, such as distributing literature and engaging in public proselytizing. However, the Children of God also became known for practices that raised concerns and led to controversy. These included the promotion of the flirty fishing, where female members engaged in sexual relationships as means of recruiting new members, and allegations of child abuse and exploitation. Due to these conventional practices, the Children of God faced scrutiny from authorities and media. In response, the group underwent several transformations, changing its name to the Family of Love and later the Family International. These changes were accompanied by shifts in beliefs and practices. In more recent years, the Family International has distanced itself from its past controversies and is focused on humanitarian and charitable efforts. The group's activities now include various social and community service projects, along with promoting Christian teachings. The People's Temple was a religious organization founded by Jim Jones in the 1950s. Initially, it was based in Indianapolis, Indiana, but later moved to California. At first, the group espoused ideals of social justice, racial equality, and communal service, attracting a diverse group of followers from different backgrounds and ethnicities. Jim Jones, the charismatic leader, portrayed himself as a visionary and messianic figure, promising a utopian society built on equality, love, and communal living. He advocated for racial integration at a time when segregation was still prevalent in many parts of the United States, which drew in individuals seeking a more inclusive and just society. However, over time, the People's Temple began to exhibit increasingly cult-like behaviors. Jim Jones exercised strict control over the members, employing psychological manipulation techniques to maintain unquestioning loyalty. He was known for conducting marathon sermons lasting for hours, where he captivated his followers with his fiery speeches and rhetoric. Members were isolated from their families and friends, and leaving the group was actively discouraged. Dissent or criticism from the People's Temple and Jim Jones was met with severe consequences, often involving public humiliation or physical punishment. In 1977, allegations of abuse, financial mismanagement, and human rights violations led to increased scrutiny of the People's Temple. The group faced numerous legal challenges, and Jim Jones became increasingly paranoid about the government's efforts to undermine his organization. In a drastic move to escape scrutiny and perceived prosecution, Jim Jones decided to move the People's Temple to a remote settlement in Jamestown, Guyana, South America. The isolated community was intended to be a utopian paradise, free from the oppression and control of the outside world. Tragically, the Jonestown experiment ended in one of the most horrifying events in modern history. On November 18, 1978, following a visit by the U.S. congressional delegation investing concerns about the group, Jim Jones ordered his followers to commit mass S. He claimed that the groups were being persecuted and that death was the only way to escape a fate worse than dying. Over 900 people, including children and infants, died that day. Most of them willingly drank a concoction of cyanide-laced fruit-flavored drink mix, often referred to as the Kool-Aid, though it was actually a different brand, while others were forcibly injected or shot by armed temple members. The Jonestown Massacre remains one of the largest mass S's in history, a haunting testament to the dangers of unchecked authority and the potential for manipulation and abuse within certain religious or ideological movements. The tragic events at Jonestown led to significant changes in the way cults are understood and dealt with in society. Governments and organizations became more aware of the dangers posed by charismatic leaders who exploit vulnerable individuals, and measures were placed to protect people from such abuses. The memory of the People's Temple and the Jonestown Massacre serves as a grim reminder of the consequences of blind faith and the need for vigilance against manipulative and potentially dangerous people. The Nicene heresies were theological disagreements that arose after the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. They include Arianism, which denied Jesus' full divinity, Nestorianism, which separated his divine and human natures, and monophysitism, which he claimed he had only divine nature. These heresies prompted debates and led to subsequent councils clarifying Christian doctrine. Siberian Old Believers are a group of adherents to the Old Believer tradition of Eastern Orthodox Christianity who settled in Siberia, Russia. The Old Believers emerged as a result of the schism within the Russian Orthodox Church in the 17th century over liturgical reforms. The Siberian Old Believers are descendants who resisted the changes imposed by the official church and faced persecution for maintaining traditional practices, such as the Old Rite liturgy and distinctive ways of crossing themselves. Many Old Believers, including those who settled in Siberia, sought refuge in remote and often harsh regions to escape persecution. In Siberia, the Old Believers managed to preserve their distinct religious and cultural identity over the centuries. They maintained their traditional literature practices, rituals, and customs while adapting to the challenges of life of Siberia's vast and remote landscapes. Siberian Old Believers played a role in shaping the region's history and culture. They contributed to the development of agriculture, craftsmanship, and trade in Siberia. Their emphasis on self-reliance and community support helped them thrive in challenging conditions. Today, the Siberian Old Believers continue to uphold their religious traditions and practices while also engaging in the modern world. They remain living in testament to the resilience of religious communities and maintained its identity in the face of historical changes and geographical isolation. NXIVM was a controversial self-help organization founded by Keith Raniere in 1998. While it initially presented itself as a personal development and empowerment program, NXIVM eventually faced widespread criticism, legal challenges, and criminal charges related to its activities. The organization offered various self-improvement courses and workshops, which attracted a diverse range of participants, including celebrities and professionals. NXIVM's teachings grew from psychological philosophy, and spirituality, while an emphasis on personal growth, leadership development, and ethical behavior. However, NXIVM's darker side came to light when reports of alleged manipulation, coercion, and exploitation within the organization resurfaced. Former members accused Keith Raniere of engaging in abusive practices, including forming a secretive subgroup called DOS, Dominus Obsessorium, or The Vow, which was reported to involve coercive control and branding of women. In 2019, Keith Raniere was convicted on multiple charges, including trafficking, racketeering, and conspiracy. Several other high-ranking members of NXIVM also faced legal consequences. The trial shed light on the extent of the organization's harmful practices and the impact they had on the participants. Alright, now into the final tier of the iceberg, starting with the Mason family. The Mason family was a cult that emerged during the late 1960s and was led by the charismatic and manipulative Charles Manson. Manson, a failed musician and ex-convict, attracted a group of devout followers who believed he possessed special insights and powers. The group lived together on an isolated ranch in California where they practiced a mix of free love, drug use, and Mason's distorted interpretation of various religious and philosophical teachings. He held an apocalyptic belief system, convicted that a race war between whites and blacks was imminent, where he called Helter Skelter, named after a song by the Beatles. In August 1969, Manson ordered his followers to carry out a series of gruesome murders. On the night of August 8th, they brutally murdered actress Sharon Tate and her 4 others at her home, and then, the following night, they murdered Leno and Rosemary Lubinka at their residence. The murders were shocking and deeply disturbing. sending shockwaves throughout the nation. The Masons family's heinous crimes exposed the dark side of the counterculture movement of the 1960s. Mason's ability to brainwash and manipulate his followers raised questions about the vulnerability of individuals to charismatic leaders who promote violence and hatred. The cult members were arrested in the late 1969 and brought to trial. Charles Manson and several of his followers, including Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten, were found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. However, their sentences were later commuted to life in prison after California abolished the death penalty in 1972. Despite being behind bars, Mason's influence continued to resonate in popular culture. He became a symbol of evil and the dangers of mind control and manipulation. Over the years, numerous books, documentaries, and films have been produced to explore the Mason family and the shocking events that unfolded. Lev Tayyar is a controversial Haredi Jewish religious group that originated in Israel and later moved to other countries, including Canada and Guatemala. The name Lev Taylor translates to pure heart in Hebrew. The group's practices and beliefs have been a subject of controversy and scrutiny. Lev Tayyar was founded by Shlomo Heilbrunz in the 1980s in Israel. Was a group found a strict interpretation of Haredi Judaism, emphasizing isolation from secular influences and commitment to traditional Jewish observance. The practices include strict modesty codes, segregation of genders, and the rejection of modern technologically. Over the years, Lev Taylor has faced accusations of child abuse, forced marriages, and neglect, leading to legal challenges and investigations in various countries. The group's practices and living conditions have also raised concerns about the well-being of its members, and particularly the children. In 2013, a significant portion of the members moved to Canada, where they faced legal battles and child welfare investigations. Some members later relocated to Guatemala. The group's activities and controversies have led to negative attention and strained relationships with local authorities in different countries. The Labaran family has been a notable presence in the realm of religious extremism and criminal activities. Rooted in the Church of the First Burn in the Fullness of the Times, a fundamentalist Mormon sect that broke away from the mainstream Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as the LDS, and the family's trajectory has been marked by a series of controversial and often violent events. At the heart of the Labaran's family history is a schism within Mormonism over issues such as polygamy and doctrinal differences. This schism led to the formation of the Church of the Firstborn of the Fullness of Times, which adhered to the more rigid interpretation of Mormon teachings. This Labaran family, particularly through the figure of Avril Labaran, played a central role in the Splinters group's evolution. Avril Labaran, a charismatic and influential figure, went on to establish his own religious organization, the Church of the Lamb of God. Under his leadership, the family became embroiled in a series of violent incidents and criminal activities. Avril Labaran orchestrated murders and violent acts that he believed were justified by their religious convictions. The family's involvement in these criminal acts, often rooted in religious disputes and rivalries, garnered widespread attention and condemnation. One of the most infamous chapters in the Labaran family history is the 4 o'clock murders that occurred in Texas in 1988. This incident involved the killings of several members of rival sect, with Avril Labaran being linked to the orchestrations of the crime. Avril was convicted and ultimately died in prison in 1981. The Labaran's family story is a stark reminder of the potential for religious extremism to lead to acts of violence and criminality. It raises questions about the boundaries of religious freedom and the responsibilities of society and law enforcement in addressing criminal behavior that is intertwined with religious ideologies. The Anthill Kids, also known as the Anthill Cult, was a disturbing religious sect that appeared in Canada during the 1970s and 1980s. It was founded and led by Robert Therault, a charismatic but manipulative figure who attracted followers through his claims of having divine power and the ability to heal. The group was initially based on Quebec, but it later moved to Ontario. Rock Therault established a tight-knit community, isolating his followers from the families and the outside world. He controlled every aspect of their lives, creating an environment of fear, manipulation, and brainwashing. Therault's teachings blended elements of Christianity with his own bizarre and violent beliefs, often involving harsh physical punishment and self-manipulation as a means of spiritual purification. As the group's leader, Therault demanded absolute obedience and loyalty from his followers. He used his positions to perpetrate physical and psychological abuse on his followers, using violence as a means of control. The cult members lived in deplorable conditions, enduring regular beatings, forced labor, and psychological torment. all in the name of achieving spiritual enlightenment and closer connection to God. Over time, the cult's actions escalated, leading to even more disturbing acts. Thoreau performed crude and dangerous medical procedures on his followers, claiming to have divine healing abilities, resulting in severe injuries and even death. He also orchestrated spiritual marriages, forcing female members to engage in relationships with him and often male members of the group, further assessing his dominance over them. The Anthill Kids also faced allegations of child abuse, as Thoreau allowed children within the group to suffer neglect and endure abusive practices. Several children were born within the cult, and they grew up in the environment of fear, indoctrination, and violence. The cult's existence came to an end in 1989 when one of Thoreau's followers, Gabrielle Lavallee, attempted to escape with her child. Thoreau discovered her plan and brutally murdered her in front of the other cult members. This heinous act was the turning point that led to the authorities finally taking action against the cult. Following Gabrielle's death, a police investigation was launched, leading to the discovery of the atrocities occurring within the Anthill community. In 1989, Rock Thoreau was arrested and later convicted for the murder of Gabrielle Lavallee and other crimes committed within the cult. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The Anthill Kid's story remains a chilling reminder of the dangers of charismatic leaders once again, and the potential for extreme abuse within religious cults. Marcus Wesson was a highly controversial figure whose actions shocked the nation and captured widespread media attention. Born on August 22, 1946 in Kansas, he was the leader of a small cult-like family and involved in various illegal activities, including incestuous relationships with his daughters, and throughout his life, Wesson moved frequently across several states, living in California, Arizona, Texas, and Kansas. He was known for keeping a tight control over his family members, often isolating them from the outside world. In the late 1980s and 1990s, he established a communal living arrangement with some of his adult daughters and nieces, creating an atmosphere of submission and control within the household. In 2004, the horrifying truth behind Mark Wilson's dark secrets came to light when authorities discovered the bodies of 9 of his children and grandchildren inside of his Fresno, California home. The shocking discovery came from the police responding to a domestic disturbance call, leading them to the gruesome scene. The victims ranged in age from 1 to 25 years old, and they were all shot to death. The investigation into the Wesson family revealed a deeply disturbing and unsettling dynamic. Marcus Wesson had fathered the children through incestuous relationships with his daughters and nieces, which he justified through twisted religious beliefs and a cult-like hold over his family members. He maintained strict control over the group and manipulated their faith to keep them under his influence. The trial that followed was highly publicized and emotionally charged. Marcus Wesson was charged with 9 counts of murder and numerous counts of sexual assault and child M. During the trial, witnesses testified about the oppressive environment Wesson had created within his family, the psychological manipulation he employed, and the abuse he subjected his children to. In 2005, Marcus Wesson was found guilty on all counts, and the jury recommended the death penalty. He was subsequently sentenced to death. The case sparked debates on various social and legal issues, including the influence of charismatic leaders. Once again, this just doesn't tell you, but every single one is a charismatic leader, and they need strict laws regarding child abuse and incestuous relationships. The impact on Marcus Wesson's actions on his surviving family members was immeasurable, as they struggled to come to terms with the horrors they endured under his control. The case also raised awareness about the need for early declaration and intervention in situations involving potential cult-like behavior and child abuse. Marcus Wesson remains on death row at San Quentin State Prison in California. His case continues to serve as a haunting reminder of the dark and dangerous consequences that can arise when individuals manipulate and exploit their vulnerable for their personal gain. And alright, that wraps it up for the cult and religion iceberg. I did skip tier 10, so if you go and be like, oh, you didn't do tier 10, yeah, I didn't, because I literally couldn't find anything about it. And so if you do find something about tier 10, let me know. But you just got, 6 or 7 out of the 10 tiers. And I hope you enjoyed anyways, and subscribe and like for more videos, and comment some video ideas below. And until next time, see ya.